All right. Good afternoon. As we were just saying, the Secretary General has just arrived in Dhaka, in Bangladesh, for his. Please, tfaddal. Okay. All right. All right. Everybody else coming down the hall? How are we doing? Excellent. All right, take two. The Secretary General has just arrived in Dhaka, in Bangladesh, to start off his Ramadan solidarity visit. Tomorrow, he will meet with the chief advisor of the government, Mohammed Yunus, and he will travel with him to Cox's Bazaar. They will meet there with Rohingya refugees who've been forcibly displaced from their homes in Myanmar, and also they will meet with the host Bangladeshi communities who've been so generous in hosting them. The Secretary General will also share an iftar with the refugees. He will also issue a call to the international community to step up their humanitarian assistance for the men, women, and children who've already suffered so much. And on Saturday in Dhaka, the Secretary General will meet with youth and representatives from civil society. You also have a joint press conference with the foreign advisor, Touhid Hossain. And we will update you on all of the Secretary General's activities. Turning to Syria, following the constitutional declaration issued by the caretaker authorities in Syria, the UN Special Envoy for Syria, Geir Pedersen, said he welcomes moves towards restoring the rule of law and notes that this development potentially fills an important legal vacuum. The Special Envoy hopes the declaration can be a solid legal framework for a genuinely credible and inclusive political transition. Proper implementation will be key, he said, along with the continued efforts to ensure transitional governance in an orderly manner. For his part, you saw we just issued a statement from the Secretary General, who said that 14 years have now passed since the Syrian people stood up in peaceful protest for their universal rights and freedoms, only to be met with brutal repression. Mr. Guterres added that what began as a call for peaceful change turned into one of the world's most devastating conflicts with an incalculable human cost. The Secretary General spoke about the millions of men, women, and children who were displaced and subjected to unimaginable hardships. Yet the Syrian people never wavered in their steadfast and courageous calls for freedom, for dignity, and for a just future. Since December 8th, however, we saw the renewed hope that Syrians can chart a different course and a chance to rebuild, a chance to reconcile, and a chance to create a nation where they can all live peacefully and in dignity. The Secretary General said nothing can justify the killings of civilians that have been reported in recent days. He stressed that all violence must stop and there must be a credible, an independent, and an impartial investigation into violations, and those responsible must be held to account, adding that the caretaker authorities have repeatedly committed to building a new Syria based on inclusive and credible foundations for all Syrians. Now is the time for action, he said, concluding by reiterating that we stand ready to work alongside the Syrians and support an inclusive political transition. We stand with the Syrian people towards the promise of a better Syria for all Syrians. And we've also just issued a statement on the treaty on the state border between Kyrgyz Republic and the Republic of Tajikistan. I can tell you that the Secretary General warmly welcomes the signing of the treaty of the state border by the presidents of the Kyrgyz Republic and the Republic of Tajikistan, and that took place today in Bishkek. He congratulates the two countries on this historic achievement. He commends their leadership, their determination, and their political will to bring the decades-long negotiations process to a successful conclusion. The Secretary General looks forward to a sustained, constructive engagement between the two countries towards fostering mutual trust, good neighborly relations, and a peaceful future for their people and the broader region. Want to bring to the forefront the humanitarian crisis that is, in a way, closest to these shores, and that is Haiti. Today, the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs tells us that the levels of displacement are reaching new high amidst escalating violence in the country. According to the International Organization for Migration, in just 3 weeks, between the 14th of February and March 5th, more than 40,000 human beings were displaced in the Port-au-Prince metropolitan area. This is the highest number of people uprooted that has been recorded in such a short period since 2021, when the displacements due to gang violence began to be tracked by us. Humanitarian operations face major access challenges due to the security risks and the resource constraints. OCHA warns that funding shortages are also leading to rapidly deteriorating conditions in displacement sites across Port-au-Prince. And an interagency mission led by OCHA visited the largest displacement site, which is currently home to more than 6,000 people. It found that many families have been displaced 3 and even 4 times, becoming increasingly vulnerable each time they are forced to move. Some families have only a single change of clothes for their children. The site, located in an administrative building, has just 4 functioning toilets, while other camps even lack the most basic latrines. In addition to the dire conditions, many of these sites are dangerously close to areas of active fighting. Last week, stray bullets hit a displacement camp, resulting in 1 person being killed and several others being injured, highlighting the urgent need for enhanced protection and immediate humanitarian support. The $908 million humanitarian response plan is only 5% funded, with only $46.5 million in the bank. The people of Haiti need more resources, and they need them now. This morning, the Security Council met to discuss the situation in Sudan. They heard a briefing from the Executive Director of UNICEF, Catherine Russell. She focused on children who, as in every conflict, are paying the highest price in this particular conflict. Ms. Russell warned that nearly 2/3 of Sudan's total population, that's more than 30 million people, will require humanitarian assistance this year. 16 million of those 30 million are children. She issued a stark reminder that famine is occurring in hotspots in at least 5 locations in Sudan, with an estimated 1.3 million children under the age of 5 living in those areas. UNICEF will need $1 billion this year to deliver support to 8.7 million of the most vulnerable children. And just to give you a bit more of a deeper dive, on the situation in Sudan, our humanitarian colleagues are yet again sounding the alarm because funding shortages are forcing the closure of community kitchens, which, as you can imagine, serve as a lifeline for millions of people across the country. Aid groups are telling us that more than 70% of 1,400 community kitchens in Sudan have ceased operations due to lack of funds, including in areas that are facing famine. A striking example of what is happening is in Zamzam camp, a place we speak to you often about. Zamzam, as you know, is near El Fasher in North Darfur. The camp is one of the locations where famine was confirmed last year. Our humanitarian colleagues tell us that the camp is estimated to be hosting some 500,000 displaced people. Severe food shortages have forced families there to consume animal feed just to survive. Our partners say that stocks of essential medicine and therapeutic foods have already run out, leading to rising level of malnutrition. Medical supplies in the camp's mobile clinics are also running out. Meanwhile, recent heavy shelling and escalating violence have placed families at even greater risk and made our humanitarian access nearly impossible. Across many parts of the country, these aid groups provide food, they provide basic health care and other critical support. Without them, hundreds of thousands of people are at increased risk of severe hunger. The budget required to sustain these kitchens and other essential frontline services provided at the community level is estimated at $12 million per month. We renew our call for an immediate de-escalation so that civilians can reach life-saving assistance they need. As local health authorities in Al Fasher have said, stopping the hostilities is the only real solution to addressing the region's worsening health crisis. And again, we are forced to reiterate our call for unimpeded access to those in need and additional resources to scale up response efforts. And we urge the international community to act now to prevent further disruptions to humanitarian support and curb the worsening food situation in Sudan. The situation is urgent, and increased funding is critical to saving lives. Turning to the situation in Gaza, our humanitarian colleagues on the ground warned that the continued closure of crossings for cargo entry is having serious impact on the UN and our partners' ability to provide essential support for people in need. The longer this halt on aid into Gaza continues, the more dire the consequences on the ground. Our partners report having to reduce food rations so as to prioritize assistance for as many vulnerable people as possible. The food security situation could sharply deteriorate unless the flow of aid into Gaza resumes as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, our partners implementing water, sanitation, and hygiene programs in Gaza say water trucking is continuing so that people have access to clean water. On the sanitation front, partners report that access to the two main landfills in Sufa and Jur al-Diek remain limited. The World Health Organization warns that public health risks remain very high, including for communicable diseases, due to the overcrowding and poor sanitation. As of the end of February, 24 out of 32 environmental samples collected tested positive for vaccine-derived poliovirus type 2. Amid a critical shelter situation, we and our partners continue to distribute items to people in need. These include mattresses, they include tarps, blankets, and bedding kits. Our teams are also carrying out assessments to the most vulnerable areas of Gaza to understand exactly what people's shelter needs are. Efforts are also continuing to ensure that hundreds of thousands of children who have missed out on many months of school are able to resume learning. This includes work to assess whether school buildings used as shelters are suitable to host in-person learning. However, severe shortages of education supplies continue to hamper these preparations, as we've been telling you. Turning to the West Bank, the World Health Organization tells us that recent military operations have caused damage to health facilities, 20 of which are not functioning, and other critical infrastructure, leading to water contamination with sewage and water shortages in some areas. Due to insecurity and destruction, our colleagues at UNRWA, health centers in Jenin and Tulkarm and Nur Shams, refugee camps have remained those centers have remained closed since the start of the year. Since January, WHO has verified 54 attacks on health centers in the West Bank, including 4 deaths and 9 injuries. Mobile clinics operated by health partners are providing services to 22 communities around Jenin refugee camp. Quick update from Hans Grunberg, our special envoy for Yemen. He is continuing his engagements with all regional and international interlocutors. Yesterday, he concluded a visit to Riyadh, where he met with the Saudi and Emirati ambassadors to Yemen, as well as the ambassadors of the permanent members of the Security Council to Yemen, as well as other senior officials. Discussions obviously focused on Yemen and regional developments, including key political dynamics. Mr. Grunberg highlighted the need for coordinated regional and international support to foster constructive dialogue, ease tensions, and advance an inclusive political process. Mr. Grunberg stressed the importance of unity and collective action in achieving a sustainable and peaceful resolution to the conflict in Yemen. Just want to answer a couple of questions I was asked, one on Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I can tell you that we are indeed concerned about recent developments in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We call on all political leaders to fully support and facilitate the work of state institutions in order to consolidate peace and ensure stability throughout Bosnia and Herzegovina. We urge all relevant actors to exercise restraint, refrain from decisive discourse and actions, and instead to commit to constructive dialogue and cooperation. And I've also been asked about the situation in Tigray in Ethiopia, and I can tell you that we are monitoring closely the developments in Tigray. We urge all parties to de-escalate the tensions, refrain from violence, and engage in urgent dialogue. We emphasize the importance of implementing the provisions of the cessation of hostilities agreement to achieve a sustainable peace in Ethiopia. I want to flag an interesting study from our colleagues at WHO and UNICEF on measles in Europe and Central Asia, and the numbers are eye-opening in a way. They tell us that 127,350 measles cases were reported in the European region in 2024. This is double the number of cases reported in 2023 and the highest number since 1997. WHO and UNICEF pointed out that measles cases in the region, comprising of 53 countries in Europe and Central Asia, had generally been declining since 1997, when some 216,000 cases were reported. In 2016, the number of cases had reached a low of 4,440. However, a resurgence was seen in 2018 and 2019 following a backsliding in immunization coverage during the COVID-19 pandemic. Cases rose significantly again in 2023 and 2024. UN agencies note that vaccination rates in many countries are yet to return to pre-pandemic levels, increasing the risk of outbreaks. In 2023 alone, 500,000 children across the region missed their first dose of measles vaccination that should be given throughout routine immunization services. WHO and UNICEF warn that measles remains a significant global threat. Almost 360,000 cases of measles have been reported for 2024 worldwide. Get your vaccination. Lastly, I want to flag that applications are now open for the Dag Hammarskjöld Fund for Journalism Fellowship, an amazing endeavor. Journalists from developing countries aged 25 to 35, I don't count on both counts. So journalists from developing countries from 25 to 35 can apply for opportunity to report on the United Nations from the United Nations. The deadline is April 30th. Anybody listening interested in applying, information about should go to unjournalismfellowship.org. And if member states are listening and have a little spare cash, gift to the program. No money, but Deji and Pam and Javier. We'll go straight down the line.
Okay, so no money, but this question is about UN money. It's been reported that the U.S. State Department sending out a questionnaire containing about 23 questions asking some UN agencies which receive fundings from United States whether this entity has been engaged with communist, socialist, totalitarian parties or any parties that espouses anti-American beliefs. Can you confirm that UN agencies receive such a questionnaire?
I'm aware from some of our colleagues that a number of agencies have received these types of questionnaires.
Can you give like the list which agencies?
No, I can't. You should check with some of the humanitarian agencies. We don't have a comprehensive list.
What is the Secretary General's response to this kind of questionnaire?
I will get back to you on that.
Okay.
Pam.
Can you give any more granularity about the timetable of UN80? When they'll get the answers? 6 months of a year?
The Secretary General will keep member states updated, working with the President of the General Assembly. I think you can see some first suggestions and actions before the General Assembly.
Okay, so it's not intended to end at the General Assembly.
That's correct.
I
think you heard and you saw what the Secretary General said. A number of these there's things that he can do himself quickly, things that he can do will take a bit more time. And obviously a lot of, when you change the structure, you change the rules, you change the regulations of how this organization works, it demands action by member states. You've read the charter, you know how much authority the Secretary General has over this organization.
Okay, and second, unrelated, is the SG has 4 days in Bangladesh. Is he meeting with the president and the interim leader? What's
He's meeting
doing?
with the chief advisor, Mohammed Yunus, and he will meet with the chief foreign advisor. He is flying out on Sunday.
Okay, thanks.
Senor.
Thanks, Steph. It has been reported today that the White House has directed the Pentagon to draw up options to increasing the American troop presence in Panama to achieve President Trump's goal to reclaiming the canal. Any comment?
I haven't seen that particular report. I will just state again that we believe that every member state of this organization should live up to the charter, including and especially the territorial integrity of states and the respect for that territorial integrity.
But the idea of increasing the troops in Canada, in Panama.
Again, I'm not going to comment on these reports as of now. Okay, Maggie, then Evelyn.
President Putin of Russia was in on the front lines today, and apparently he's saying that Ukrainian forces taken prisoner should in the Kursk region should be treated as and prosecuted as terrorists under Russian law, not as prisoners of war. Does the UN have an opinion on that?
All prisoners of war need to be treated with respect of the Geneva Conventions. Evelyn.
Thank you, Stéphane. I was in Darfur, as Edie was also in 2003 with the Security Council, and we see the same thing appearing today, the Zamzam refugee camp and all the other complaints. You've said that. Any comment of how this terrible situation has persisted in how many decades now?
I think we've all followed Sudan for a long time. What we have currently are two leaders who are unable to put the prosperity and of their own people first and foremost.
And one more. I can't find the story now, but there was some news report that the UN representative in Myanmar, Burma, had a conflict of interest. Is that something that's...
Who are you referring to?
I've just...
Okay, well, when just come back with the detailed question.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yep, thank you so much, Steph. Another one on Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin also spoke in favor of the idea of 30-day ceasefire in Ukraine. What do you have to say? Do you welcome this announcement?
I mean, we've seen, I was just watching some of the events that you're referring to live. I mean, I'd refer you back to what the Secretary General himself said yesterday. We would, of course, welcome a ceasefire in Ukraine, given the tremendous amount of suffering that we have seen in that conflict. We very much hope that it will materialize. It'll pave the way for a peace, for a just peace, and a just and sustainable peace along the parameters that the Secretary General outlined yesterday. Okay, thank you all. I wanted to say Happy Friday, but I don't think we can say that yet, no? It feels like it should be, yeah, exactly. One day it will be Friday.